What's going on, guys? This is Gene Jensen, and it's time for another Friday Night Live. What is up? What is up? All right, so I'm going to let a few people jump on. I didn't make any announcements across social media tonight. I've been out working in my garden. It is Good Friday, and here in the South in Georgia, we put our gardens in. So that's what I've been doing with my kids, digging ditches and plowing and doing all kinds of stuff today. So I've been really busy. I just got in long enough to wash my hands and get ready to rock and roll. So let me open up the comments, get everything coming in. What's up, Brandon and Robert? Awesome. I'm gonna take my time getting things rolling right now. Just gonna wait for everybody to kind of jump in. You guys that get notifications, I really appreciate you doing that, so you know exactly when these things kick off. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the giveaway here in just a little bit. We're gonna do the normal Q&A, and yeah, we're just going to talk about what's going on. So I hope everybody is doing good. I hope everybody's well and has stayed away from this COVID-19 thing. It's a lot fewer people than I thought would be, having issues with it. That's for sure. So what's up, Chris? Dylan, what's up, man? How you doing, brother? John, David Carver, what's going on? Brian Guest, what's up? Wicked Fishing, what's going on, man? Kurt Duncan says he caught his PB 7-pound 3-ounce largemouth last Sunday. That's awesome. I'm glad some of us can fish, man. Some of these lawmakers and these governors are, I don't know. I'm just as ticked off about it this week as I was last week with people shutting down fishing in the state because of this COVID-19, which makes absolutely no sense. So, Istapoga's on fire. It should be, man. That should be prime up there right now. So, Ryan, what's going on, man? David, hey, man, how you doing from Folsom, Canada? That's awesome. Howard, what's going on? Let's see. Giveaway link seems not to be working. Let me go ahead and I don't know if I can change it here. Might have to leave and do that. Just go to the it should work though, because they created that one for me. But I don't know how to go change it. I know what I can do. Give me just a second. Let me go into YouTube and see if I can open it up on YouTube and change it to what to the old one. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I want to make sure that works. Copy. Go to videos. I ought to be sharing the screen with you and show you guys how this all is done, but it's kind of crazy. We're going to edit that. So I'm changing it on YouTube to what it's supposed to be. All right, give it a minute to save and do everything else, and we'll be able to do it. Sorry, guys. Sorry, there's already 150 people on there. Sorry about that little snafu. I went ahead and changed it to what it's normal, what it is. It's georgia811.com index.php/flukemaster. But so when that pops up on the in the description, you guys go ahead and click on that and enter the contest. All right. So what the contest is you guys get to get the opportunity to win a fishing trip with me on my home lake, that lake I catch all the big 6 and 7s and 8s. Haven't caught a double digit off of it yet, but it's right down the road from my house. We put you up in a hotel. We make sure you get here. I don't know all the details of what's paid for, but we've got a pretty good budget to be able to do that. And we get to go fishing, and it'll be on my boat so we can video it. You'll be part of a video that is all about you and our fishing trip. And hopefully we catch something. A lot of times that lake is pretty tough. But if they lift the restrictions for this COVID-19, we're going to be going in probably the end of May, if I remember correctly. I'm not going to pull up the email, but it's in the end of May. And end of May is or early June, somewhere around there. That's when I catch all the giants anyway, so it'll be a lot of fun. Let's see. Mark Wyman said it just updated. That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's see. Oh, it was in Facebook. Ah, shoot. See, I do it for YouTube, and then Facebook picks it up. So in Facebook, if you go into my page, you'll see it in my last post about it. So I always forget about that. I'm going to start using that other one. Let's see what else. So you go in, you enter the contest, you give them your name, your phone number, and your email address, I think. And then it goes to another page where you just start clicking on the plus ones and do all the little things. And each entry, or each thing you do, is an entry. And the last one's pretty cool. You can share it with your friends. So you click on it. It gives you a link, your own little personal link, and you send that link to your friends. And every one of your friends that enter the contest using your link, it gives you another entry. And I don't know how many we're up to. Let me see. We are up to 3,805 total entries. How cool is that? So I entered a couple of them just to see what it was like, but I'm not going to finish those up. What else is going on with everybody? I'll tell you what's going on with me. I'm in the middle of putting my garden in. I've been working on it all week, been dodging the rain and everything else, which doesn't make putting a garden in very fun, especially if you got clay soil. I've been gardening since I was about 4. And so that's all I know. So I put in a garden every year, and it's a pretty good sized one. And I've been digging ditches all day, building a new compost bins, which are about the size of a large truck. And yeah, I've been having fun forcing my kids to do some child labor. So that's how I learned how to work. That's how they're going to learn how to work. So the boys have been out digging ditches and learning what they don't want to do when they grow up, which is pretty neat. That's how I did it. I learned I didn't want to be a dairy farmer, and I didn't want to work hard. So or work hard at manual labor, at least. So it made me work harder at other things. Another thing is the coupon code down at the bottom. You get 10% off all Fluke Master gear. Matter of fact, I got this cool little banner I made up for that. All right, let's get to the Q&A. I want to get right to the meat and potatoes. First of all, I hope everybody's doing good from this COVID-19 thing. I hope everybody is healthy and you're surviving the craziness. What I want to know is how many of you need a haircut? That's all I want to know. How many of us need a haircut? I'm lucky. I learned how to cut my own hair when I was a private in the Army. And so tonight, all this mop on the top of my head is going to be cut back down. And I'll trim this up and get this nice and neat, so I don't have to worry. I haven't paid for a haircut in, I don't know, probably 5 times since 2000 or since 1996. So, all right. Let's see. I just saw one I wanted to. Dang, it's gone. You guys are asking that. Okay. Sean says, "That's awesome, Fluke. My mom told me to go to school or work in her restaurant. No staying home." Amen, brother. Amen. I don't know, Joe Nee that comes on here every once in a while. He owns a Chinese restaurant up in Dayton, Tennessee. He took over his mom and dad's restaurant. He's doing pretty good. So he's a good friend of mine. I eat there every time I'm up up at Chickamauga. Do you feel that by putting braid on your spinning reels, it limits you on what baits to use? No, it doesn't. The thing now, when I first got introduced to the idea of putting braid on a spinning reel, I fought it for 2 years. I was like, that's stupid. I said, and I've been using fluorocarbon and monofilament on spinning reels for so long. Finally, I tried it. And what it does is it reduces the issues that you have with spinning reels. Yeah, when you do get wind knots, when you do have twists in your line, it can be more difficult to get them out. But it doesn't happen for a long time. And so it really reduces the issues of line twist. And then you just tie a fluorocarbon leader onto the end as long as you want to tie it. Mine are 15 to 18 feet long to start with. And then I just use them. As long as I'm using the FG knot that holds up for days and days and days, I'll just use that leader until it's too short to use and then tie on another one. And it really doesn't limit me for anything when it comes to a spinning reel. Yeah. Well, that was a long answer, but that's how I feel. One haircut or cut them all. Just, I'm gonna cut every one of them. I promise you that. I use a 4 on the top, a 2 on the side. I fade it. And I need to make a video because it's hilarious to get the straight line in the back of my hairline. I use electrical tape and I tape it straight all the way across, and I run it to right here and tape it to my cheeks because that's the only thing it sticks to. And then I just trim it straight line, pull the electrical tape off, and then just clean it up on the sides behind my ears real careful. Been doing that for years. Electrical tape doesn't stick to your hair, so it's pretty nice. There you go, a life hack. Sean, thanks for the $5, man. I really appreciate you guys that use the super chat to donate money, man. You guys are awesome. He says, I cut my own hair, but I have a huge ponytail. A man bun. Oh no, you just lost some cool points. I have to stay culturally connected. Now I understand that now. Hope you and the family are doing well. We're doing well. Let's see. Doc Graham says, been having a tough bite in Pensacola out of my yak on the public lakes here. Super thick vegetation. Even my weedless setups come back covered. Any suggestions? The first thing that came to my mind while I was reading it is slow way down. This time of the year, those Florida bass love a worm presentation slow. 1/8 ounce bullet sinker in front of a black and blue Cinco or a June bug Cinco or even a green pumpkin Cinco would work great. Fish super slow on edges of thick grass. Don't try to fish in the thick grass. Try to fish what I call hard breaks, where you've got thick grass and all of a sudden that thick grass is gone. And there might have stuff underneath, but it's just like a nice long line of grass that just died. That it just isn't there anymore. And just fish that edge real slow and you'll get bit. But it's super painful. But you will catch fish doing it all the way through the summertime. You can do that. So I got a hair this. I got to shave, man. That's driving me nuts. Any bass boat is good as long as it floats and moves. I agree 100%, Eric. I totally agree. Gene, have you done any fishing in Canada, specifically Ontario? I fished in northern Quebec when I was a senior in high school. My dad took me for my graduation present up there caribou hunting, and we fished for Arctic char, which was a blast. But other than that, I haven't done much fishing. Oh, and I fished Lake of the Woods, an ice fishing what was it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? So what's your thoughts? By the way, David, thanks for the $5. What's your thoughts around the spawn and how water temp, moon phase, rising, falling water levels, and fishing pressure affect when it happens? Whoo! This is how I feel. I think water temperature is the most important thing, because if it gets back into the 50s, those eggs will die. And it gets back into starts dropping around 55. As long as it stays in the high 50s, you're pretty good, or the bass will be pretty good. Now, if you have the water temperature that gets in the low 60s on the moon phase in April or May, at least here in the South. Now, it's different up further north. It's like a month later, and then a month later, and then all the way up and onto the Canadian border. It's June, I believe, or April, May, June. It's July or something. I don't know. It's crazy. But anyway, when you have the full moon, the water temperature at the same time in April, May, and then South Georgia in March, it's like gangbusters. You have huge floods of bass that move up to spawn. Like this year, the full moon we didn't get a full moon until the water temperature was in the high 60s. It was in low 50s the last full moon, got up to the high 60s by the next full moon. And so once it got into the high 50s and low 60s, the bass started just slowly moving up, a few at a time. I ran my lake and my lakes. I ran the banks of my lake, and the lake's not that big, but there were only 4 spawning bass in this 1,000-acre lake. And then you come back the next day and there'd be 15 more. And you come back the next day, there'd be 20 more. They just didn't all move up at the same time. So when you have all that stuff going on, it's great. Falling water, on the other hand, can pull them out. Rising water can get them to stop and move up farther, depending on the water temperature. So it's crazy, but there's those few years when you get that full moon and that water temperature at the same time, and it's lights out. It's amazing. So Ron says he needs a haircut and a beard trim. I'm not growing a mullet, Dylan. I know you love your mullet, but I'm not growing a mullet. Sounds like a bad idea using tape. It's not. It's electrical tape. You guys are nuts. Let's see. Corey Sniffen says, I'm going fishing tomorrow morning in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. What should I use? If it's windy, use a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, or a lipless crankbait. If it's not windy, use a jig, a Texas rig worm, or creature bait specifically. I'd use a creature bait. So those are the two. Or those are the few. So let's see. What's a good rod length, rod height, and reel gear for variety? 7:3 to 1 gear ratio is kind of your general all-around gear ratio. And then a medium heavy, about a 7-foot medium heavy rod, medium heavy, moderate fast, or a fast action rod. Have I ever fished the James River in Virginia? I have not. I was born in Virginia, but I was too young when we moved. I don't remember any of it. I'll have some opportunities to fish the St. John's in June. Any tips for summer Florida fishing? I just gave what I typically would give. Find the outside edge of grass and fish super slow is what I would do. So, thanks, Northern Pike. I appreciate it. Let's see. Let me double check everything. All right. Oh, by the way, anybody want to catch this after, later on, or catch any of these that you missed, you can catch them up on Facebook or on YouTube. And I'm also on several different podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to this while you're driving or whatever else, you better not be driving much right now. But anyway, you can catch them up there. Joey Upton's going to Lake Varner. Man, that used to be the best lake in the state of Georgia till they put carp in it, grass carp, and they ate all the grass and killed the lake. On Varner tomorrow, they're probably going to be post spawn. There's a couple of places that I like to fish, and this is going off a way long ago history. But if you go back to the old pond, you out the boat ramp, take a left off the boat ramp, go straight across the lake. You got that one big pocket that has the big dam across it. On the other side of that dam, on the left side, in about 12 foot of water, is a pile of concrete. And it used to be a boat ramp that was right there when it was just that small lake, or a boat dock. And they basically blew it up and left all the rubble right there. They're always on that thing this time of year. Carolina rig jig across that thing, and then hit points going up the right arm is what I would do. So let's see. Tim Osika says, what are some elements of a good first John boat rig setup? Who's trying to call me? My mother-in-law is trying to call me right in the middle of my Friday Night Live. I ain't gonna answer it. All right. What are some elements of a good first John boat rig setup? Thanks. Some elements of a good first John boat. My first John boat was a 14-foot with an 8-horse tiller on it. And I really, really enjoyed fishing out of it. It didn't need to be much. I had it on a trailer, so it was easy to launch, and I messed around and put a deck on it and stuff like that. The biggest thing is get one you can afford, get one that's stable enough to where you're comfortable in it. And just be careful if the wind picks up, or check the weather before you leave and all that other stuff. Just check the wind and make sure it's not going to get dangerous while you're out fishing bigger lakes. So, Stefan, man, I haven't seen you in a while, brother. How you doing? Stefan is a good old buddy of mine. Thanks for the $5. I know I missed it. It's somewhere around here, but I saw it pop up at the top. Let's see. What's more effective, a Ned rig shaky head or drop shot? Has anybody tried the favorite fishing bit, Big Sexy? I don't know what the Big Sexy is, but anyway. Okay, so I have a really good experience with this. There was one time I was catching a ton of spotted bass on Lake Gunnersville on a drop shot, and I'm looking at my fish finder and I'm catching them underneath the boat, and all of a sudden the bite just kind of died down. We probably caught, me and two other people on the boat, I was guiding it that day. We probably caught 40 or 50, and all of a sudden that bite died, and I started noticing on my fish finder that the fish were no longer off the bottom. You could see fish a little bit off the bottom on the fish finder. All of a sudden those arches got real close to the bottom, and I switched to a shaky head and started catching them again. I stopped catching them on a drop shot, but I caught them on a shaky head. So they're two different baits for two different things. Sometimes the bass are looking up. Sometimes they're off the bottom and looking up, and they want to eat something that's above their head, and that's when a drop shot's good. But a lot of times they're eating on the bottom, and that's when a shaky head's good. Let's see. Have I heard any updates on Aaron Martins? I have not. I hope everybody's praying for him. That's tough, man. If you guys didn't hear, and I haven't read a whole lot about it, but he had some seizures on a boat. Went and had a brain scan done, and they found two tumors, I believe. I want to say aneurysms, but they weren't aneurysms. They were tumors. And then he had brain surgery just the other day, but I think he's doing okay. I think we'd have heard if he wasn't. Am I going to do any northern smallmouth fishing this year? No, probably not, because I usually do them this month. Nobody's traveling right now, so. Let's see. What's a versatile spinning rod and reel setup? A medium heavy spinning rod is really, really versatile. A reel, I would get probably just get a. The funny thing is each company has different. The sizes of the reels are different. 13 Fishing calls them a 2.0. Shimano calls them a 2000 or a 3000. And I think Okuma calls them like a 300 or something. But anyway, just pay attention to the first number. A 2.0 or a 3.0 are the sizes that you're looking for. So medium heavy spinning rod with a 2.0 or 3.0. 3.0 will probably be better for medium heavy. It'll just balance that rod out a little bit better than because it's probably a little heavier. So I know I'm saying heavier, just a couple of ounces. I have a hard time finding a spot to fish when on new water. What's the best way to start? I always start on points. If I don't have a fish finder, I always start on points. If I have a fish finder, I start wherever I can find the highest concentration of fish in that area that I decide I want to fish, or not fish, bait fish, not fish. And then I just go fishing points in that area. Let's see. Just bought my first kayak and bait caster, and I get to take them out tomorrow for the first time. I was wondering what to fish for in Michigan. It is still really cold up here. Smallmouth is what I would be doing. Ben Nowak has a channel, and he just changed the name of his channel to like the Smallmouth Experience. I would go watch his channel. Ben is probably the best smallmouth angler that I know, and he changed his channel so he could completely focus on fishing for smallmouth and teaching you guys how to catch smallmouth. And he's from up there, so yeah, I'd pay a lot of attention to what he has to say. I don't know a whole lot about catching smallmouth comparative to what he knows. So hey, Fluke, you convinced my wife to let me get an SS 127 in last week. In last week's Friday Night Live, it worked. That's awesome, man. Yeah, you'll love that kayak. It's such a fishing machine. Fishing Chickamauga for the first time tomorrow. Chester Frost Park. What should I target? Also, where are a couple grass flats? Water temps are 65, 75. I haven't been up there this year, so I'm not sure how far along the grass is at growing. But if I'm putting in a Chester Frost, I'm just going I'm basically going to stand there at the boat dock, looking at the lake, go 45 degrees to the left, and just go back in that pocket and fish that area. There's always grass back there. And that shallow flat on the left, there's always fish there. That's where I start. I don't get out on the main lake until about halfway through the morning, and then I go look and spend most of my time running around looking for stuff. Adam Webb's fishing Fort Largo tomorrow. They say that's a tough Georgia State Park. Have you fished there? I haven't in many, many, many years. Any words of wisdom for the springtime? They're going to be shallow, probably between 0 and 8 to 10 feet on that lake. Throw a square bill, a lipless crankbait, or even a spinnerbait on Fort Yargo, and you should be okay, at least earlier, as long as there's low light. If it's real bright, sunny day and there's no wind on the water, then you're going to have to drag a worm or shaky head or something. So, but they're there. They may be done spawning, but they're not going to be far off the bank. Do I ever use a hard twitch bait like a mirror lure for bass? I don't. That's a good idea though, but I don't. I have all. I think the reason is that I have a box of mirror lures, but they're all for redfish, and it's my redfish trout box, and that's why I never use them for bass fishing, because I don't get them out unless I'm going to Louisiana. So, would I recommend a 7-foot rod for drop shotting? I use a 6/8, a 7-foot, and a 7'3". The 6/8 I use when I'm fishing directly under my trolling motor, just because it's shorter and I keep my bait closer to me. And the other two, just they kind of interchange. There's no reason why they're two different lengths. Just I ordered two different lengths. So, but a medium light to a medium are the actions that I use, or the powers that I use. So, man, you guys are killing it with these questions. Golly. Michael Poplin says, when you can see bait balls of shad and you see bass chasing, what would you throw? I've tried jerk baits, spinner baits, underspins, topwater, etc. Still not that much. I would throw exactly what you tried. I would just try different speeds and different presentations. Speed up and stop, a drag and stop. Just try reeling it different types of ways until you get bit. And 9 times out of 10, you can get bit again doing the same thing you were doing when you got bit the first time. All right. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water. The pollen outside kills me. It dries the back of my throat out. And that's the only, and I'm not allergic to it. It's so bad right now. Most of the ponds and lakes I fish have snodgrass, algae, leaves, etc., covering the bottom. What would be my best options to bottom fish when bass are being sluggish? If you've got that snodgrass on the bottom, 9 times out of 10, those bass are not going to be in it. They may be just above it, but they're not going to be in it. They don't like to get in there because as they're trying to breathe, that stuff is so fine that they'll suck it in their mouth and it has to filter through their gills, and they just don't like to be around it. Same thing with silty bottoms. So a short drop shot would work. Some type of light worm when they're really sluggish. Something you can fish super slow. That little, I'm calling it a chicken rig because that's what Mike Iaconelli called it. But that little bait that I didn't know anything about, that I made the video about this last week, that's what I'd be fishing, something like that. So Randall Brooks, man, thanks for the $5. He says, tight lines, buddy. Wife caught her new PB last weekend, a 6'1", 20 inches long. That's a fat fish. Ramp's getting hard to find and get in here in South Carolina. That's what I hear, man. You guys, good luck. Tell her congratulations for me. That's freaking awesome. B Brown, thanks for the $10, man. And Tim Morris, thanks for the $9.99. He says, always appreciate your info. Thanks from Rockford, Illinois. Appreciate you, brother, man. Everybody donates through Super Chat. That's so sick, man. That's awesome. Appreciate it. What's your go-to knot, and what's the best universal knot in your opinion? My go-to knot is an improved clinch knot. I tie it 99% of the time unless I'm tying braid to my lure. If it's braid, I'm going to use a Palomar knot. And then, of course, when I'm rigging a drop shot, which you're going to use a Palomar knot anyway with a drop shot. So, but always an improved clinch knot with everything else. And if it's fluorocarbon, you just got to remember to tie it really, really carefully. Don't try to pull the knot down your line after you're done tying it. Push it down with your thumb as you're tightening it. Get it nice and wet with a little bit of spit and just kind of ease it into being tight. And you don't have to pull it super tight because the fish is going to tighten it up for you. And that answers Justin's question. What knot do I use for frog fishing? I'm always using braided line, so I'm going to tie a Palomar knot. A Palomar knot just doesn't slip with braid. If you guys remember, well, a lot of you guys may not remember, but many, many years ago when the first braided line came out, it was called spider wire. At least that I remember, it was spider wire. That stuff didn't hold a knot worth nothing. It was horrible. Any knot, you had to put super glue on to keep it from unraveling. And I lost so many baits that year. Oh, man, that was horrible stuff. Let's see. Hey, Gene, what's a good spinning reel for drop shot, wacky, etc.? Size, make. Just ordered a finesse rod from the Edge. I love the KP. I think it's called a KP. Yeah. The 13 fishing KP, which is a really, really light reel. If you're not going to go saltwater, it's a great reel. It's not saltwater rated. It's lightweight. A 3.0 would be the perfect size for it, for what you're doing. It just is a good all around reel. And I think it's only like $100. So that wouldn't work. RJ Casting says, just got off the pond, got skunked again. Feel like I get skunked more often than I should for somebody who pond fishes in Florida. Florida's pretty tough this time of year. It's even worse in the fall, but they're in that transition. They're done spawning. They're moving out. They're feeding. You just got to slow down, dude. They're lazy. Florida bass are lazy, and they don't like to go far. They'll get real tight into cover. You got to punch into that thick cover or fish the outside edge of the grass. So how do you come to the proper weight? Oh, how do you choose the proper weight for braided line for a bait caster? Because I know the diameter is much less than other lines. Does this make a difference? Yes, it does. I made a video a few years ago, and I was wrong as wrong. I said 40 pound and higher would be great. 40 pound is not good on a bait caster because of that diameter being so thin. It tends to overrun itself really, really easy. And there's not any stiffness to it. Like your fluorocarbon, you have stiffness, and it prevents that. So I always say 50 pound or 65 pound braid on a bait caster, no matter what. You'll get a lot less backlashes. You'll fish a whole lot more efficiently. And just 40 pound just has not worked for me. Now, maybe some of the less expensive braids that are a lot thicker than the Seaguar that I use, they may work pretty good at 40 pound. But I'm telling you right now, the stuff, it just 50, 60 is what I would use, or 50 and up. So I fish offshore banks on my yak. What should be my arsenal for small local ponds? Dude, that's a whole video right there. I've got a video about the 6 rods that I keep on my kayak. I would, if I were you, I would go search my channel for it, because that's exactly what I use. But dude, I'd sit here for 15 minutes trying to tell you the answer to that one. Oh, that's good, Sean. Thanks, man. Sean says Aaron Martins is home and doing well. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, that's another good question, and it brings up that video I was just talking about. Gabriel says, you said in the video that you use only 40 pound test on bait casters, so you don't match the line weight to the rod recommendations. How dangerous is this in terms of breaking a rod? How does this break a rod? Back in the day, that would break a rod. I mean, it really did. But now the rods are so well built. It's usually not because you're using overpowered line or whatever else. That's when you crank that drag all the way down. That's when you have those issues. So so it goes back to 50 and 60 just being easier to cast is what it is. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the recommendations of the line is, to me personally, and somebody's gonna totally rip me apart for this, it is a tradition for the most part, because the braid came out and changed the world. It is absolutely a tradition. To give you an idea of what kind of line you would use for what techniques may be good for that rod is what I think. So Ethan Woods, thanks for the $5. He says, thanks for all you do with your fishing videos. You have helped shape me into the fisherman I am today. That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad I could help. That's what I love doing this about. And George Smith, thanks for the $10, man. I'm trying to keep up. You guys are killing me. This is tons of questions. If there are any smallmouth places in North Georgia? I know there are. Holy cow. And I can't think of most of the lakes in North Georgia have a few smallmouth. I know Carter's does not. The rivers in Georgia, there's smallmouth in the Savannah River. There's smallmouth in the Chattahoochee River. There's smallmouth in the Etowah, I believe. Yeah, that's tons of rivers that have them. And I'm not sure about what lakes. I bet you what the DNR website would let you know for sure. Hunter Nixon, thanks for the 10 or for the $5. He says, I tend to miss a lot of fish on hook sets with jigs. Is it better to set the hook with slack line or take up most of the slack line? Set the hook. It is best with jigs. What's happening is you're setting the hook hard and it's blowing that fish's mouth open, and the hook is not getting penetrated. Pull your rod till your line tightens up, and then pull hard. It's basically a hook set on a tight line. We call it a reel set, is what we call it. You reel into the fish and then pull hard. David Bradshaw, thanks for the $10. He says, what 13 reel do you use for 2.0, 3.0 for drop shotting? Either one, it really doesn't matter. I use 2.0 if it's a heavier reel. Like the K is a little bit heavier reel, that kind of stuff, I'll use a 2.0. But if it's a light reel, I use a 3.0. I'm really picky about the weight of the spinning reel because it's got to balance well, because you're sitting there shaking it all day long is all you're doing. You know, and you want a rod that's really balanced, that doesn't hurt your wrist and stuff. So that's kind of the way I choose it. I know it's not the way everybody else does, but for me, it's having to, hold it all day long. Hey, John, thanks for the $10. John's the guy who painted that picture right there. So that's John cranking up. Isn't that awesome? I love that thing. And I know it drives John, this thing hanging crooked like that just drives OCD people crazy, and I love it. So let's see. All right, I know I'm way behind in comments. Let's get caught up real quick. Oh, there you go. Blue Ridge has smallmouth. That's right. I knew I couldn't remember it. How do you find fish on a big lake when you only have fish finder on the trolling motor? Whoo! I idle around. What I try to do is I try to get to where I can see that fish finder up in the front of the boat, and I'll idle around with the big motor. I used to do it opposite. When I didn't have a fish finder up on the trolling motor, I'd turn my back one around, so I could see it, and I'd be motoring around with my trolling motor up front, but looking at my back fish finder. Let's see. Tips for fishing for largemouth at Carter's Lake in North Georgia. The best thing I can tell you about Carter's is that the largemouth love to stay in that bank cover because it's such a deep lake. They don't get far off the bank. It's one of those lakes that you can really still catch them all year long fishing the bank, but get out on those humps and those points a little bit further out, but still stay fairly shallow. They'll be out on the cover. That's my experience with them anyway. And boat docks. My goodness, boat docks. So which reminds me, now that I'm sitting halfway through this, you guys click on that link down in the description of the video. It is the giveaway we're doing. You guys can win basically an all expense paid trip to fish with me. It's pretty easy to enter. You just click on the link and follow all the directions. So, and I appreciate Georgia 811. No, what Georgia 811 is a lot of states have this. You dial 811 before you dig in your yard or do any type of construction digging or anything like that. And they send out or they coordinate with the utility companies to send somebody out to mark all their utility lines so you don't cut through them. And so it saves you a ton of time and money and everything else. If you guys screw up and cut something you're not supposed to, it prevents that from happening. So call before you dig, man. 811. What are some underrated jerkbaits? I know the Mega Bass and the Lucky Craft work. Underrated jerkbaits. The Spro mixed stick is one that is super underrated. Trying to think of another one. Dude, those new 13 fishing jerkbaits. I got one sitting over here somewhere, I think. No, I don't. They're in my barn. They're really good. They're like $15. Man, I freaking slayed them on them this winter. Just never had the camera on while I was doing it. Sorry for the shakes, guys. I got my feet propped up on my desk. But yeah, I'm trying to think of another one that I use a lot. You already mentioned one of them, Lucky Craft, but why are there no smallmouth lakes in Florida? The water gets too warm, is the reason. Smallmouth love current, and there's not a lot of current in a lot of the lakes in Florida. and they love that cooler water. They have to have some type of depth to get to in the summertime and in the wintertime. So that's the reason. Lake Chattooga has smallmouth as well. Is there anything you would change or advice to give about your kayak electronic setup? Were you able to find a replacement for the wood you mounted your transducer to? I found a replacement, but then I put a Ray Marine on there, and the Ray Marine bracket worked pretty good. It still isn't quite as set up the way I'd like it, but it works just great. I don't really notice it unless I look real close. But I wouldn't change anything about it, man. Really, I have done so well with those electronics, and I love the fact that the transducer is right under my feet. So anything that I see on the side scan is directly to my left and right. It's not behind me. It's not in front of me. It's right there. And it makes a difference after you've spent as much time idling around looking at things as I have. So, did I say KP Real? I did. And I may be totally, I'm dyslexic with numbers and those type of letters and stuff like that. I screw things up all the time. So it's the red and black reel is what it is. If they're schooling, oh, thanks for the $5, Jonathan. Appreciate it. He says, if they're schooling and keep missing big and small topwaters, what do you recommend? Stop throwing topwater is what I recommend. There's 2 baits I keep on my boat at all time when I'm on lakes where there's a lot of schooling fish. One is a jig head with a fat Albert grub on it, usually a pearl or a smoke. And I'll throw that and just let it sink a couple of inches under the water and reel. The other one is a spy bait. And I know most spy baits, when you read how to fish them, you throw it out on super light line, you let it sink to 15, 20 feet, whatever, and start slowly reeling it back in. I use a spy bait for just this reason. You throw it out, let it sink about 2 inches and start reeling real slow. And a lot of times when they're not hitting the top water, they'll hit something just under the surface. So I learned that trout fishing, by the way. My brother and I were fly fishing in Idaho once, and I wasn't catching squat on my dry fly, and he took his dry fly and he put a little bit of ointment on one of the hackle, and which caused it just to get under the surface and just float just barely under the surface. And he waxed my butt up, down, left, and right with that thing. And so when I started having that issue with bass fishing, I kind of thought about that. I was like, let me get just under the surface, and I started killing them. So is there a story on how you achieved the sponsorship with Georgia 811? Yes, Scott Butcher hooked that one up. So I'd have to ask him. But yeah, it's a pretty good little. They're a great people. I mean, really, really good people, Stephan. It's like the Bass you guys that you work with, just great people. So have I got to fish with 13 Fishing motorboat? It's a very odd bait. And I think I put it back in my boat. He's talking about this bait right here. And it is a very odd bait. Let me see if I can get it to focus for you guys. There we go. It looks like a fluke, but it's got a floating plastic buzzbait tail. Okay, and let me show you something. Let me get zoomed in again. Come on. Get happy with me. There we go. The hook it comes rigged like this with the hook already in it. And the reason is that there's a piece of really stiff rope or string that runs right here. And there's a split ring that the hook goes through. You can still take the hook out and put it in, but there's a split ring the hook goes through. And so this thing cannot be pulled off. And it's a really, really tough, soft plastic. It's not your normal soft plastic. It's super tough. It's going to last a lot of fish, and it floats is the key. And so you throw it out over top of grass or whatever, and I throw it on a medium heavy spinning rod just because it makes it easier to throw. And I just slowly reel it with my rod high on the top of that grass, and you can stop it, and this blade floats, and you start reeling, and it's just a little subtle chug, and it kills them. I love this thing, and I'm still trying to get a video of it. I'm waiting for the right time of the year, which ain't far away. And I probably would have worked it pretty good around. I fished a little bit around beds, got some blow ups, but I wanted to do something else, so I put it back down. So yeah, it's a good little bait. How do you keep the carpet in your boat clean? Shop vac and a hose. Yes, I use a shop vac. the carpet down at the bottom of my boat right now is actually a vinyl, a woven vinyl. And so I just spray it out and scrub it a little bit with a brush if there's mud in it, and then I just shop back it out. The carpet itself, I'll get my pressure washer out, but I'll hold the pressure washer a long way, a good ways away from it, and just spray it, and then shop back it out. So, tell you who to ask. That'd be Tackle Junkie 81 at some gun. He has the cleanest, most immaculate boats I've ever seen. Any tips for Table Rock, Watertown? I've never fished Table Rock, Keegan. I'm sorry, man. Let's see if I can get caught back up. Ed Wolf, thanks for the $5. Late to the chat. Best advice for pond, South Georgia, most post spawn. What typically happens is they go back out towards long points and humps. They get offshore. They get in the grass. From here on out, I'm throwing topwater around grass. I'm throwing big worms out deep. That kind of stuff. It's your typical post spawn through the early summer. Start running the bank early in the morning with a spawn, with some type of a moving bait. Early in the morning, you got the shad spawn that comes up, and the bass are in shallow. They've fed all night on shad, and you start fishing boat docks and seawalls and rocks. Anything hard, they'll spawn on, and the bass aren't going to be far behind. A little popper or a small spinner bait or something, a little square bill crankbait will work really good. So, I love this one. You've used the floating worm technique, or have I used the floating worm? If so, what color works best for you? I just got halfway finished editing my floating worm video that was supposed to be out today, but I got stuck working in my garden. So hopefully I'll have it out tomorrow or Sunday. I know I didn't launch a video this week, and it's because of gardening. But yeah, I filmed a floating worm video, and it is the methylate worm is the one I use the most, the bright one. So yeah, you'll see that one. That's a good video. There's a lot of discrepancy with where you should mount a transducer to read on plane. I have a total scan, and the consensus is to mount the bottom edge between 8 1/4. Oh, I see what you're saying. Do I agree? It depends on, I don't know what type of boat you have. My boat, aluminum boats, typically they cavitate a little bit more. They get more air up underneath them. And if you've got air that goes over top of that transducer while you're up on plane, it's going to read a little bit, but not great. It's going to read enough to be able to tell whether you're close to the bottom or far from the bottom. On like a Ranger or a Triton fiberglass boat, I agree, 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch. But then again, it just depends on how that air that gets up underneath your boat passes through under your boat. And so a lot of people just try to play around with where they mount their transducer. But when you're done with that, you got holes all in the bottom, the back of your boat. So, but yeah, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch just below would work great. Dude, Stefan, that's a good idea. He says the motorbait. He says I need the motorbait for the boat for the shad spawn. That is I didn't even think about that, dude. Now you got me wanting to sit here and wait for the shad spawn. Let's see. When do you throw buzz baits? I throw buzz baits starting as soon as they're done spawning, and I'll throw them through November. And I don't, not all the time, but that's typically when buzz baits work well. When the bass are shallow and active, they're great. You just have to throw them and try to reel them as slow as you can, but still keep those blades above the surface. Stephen English says, thanks for the content. My nephews love your content. Greetings from South Carolina. Awesome. I appreciate it. Let's see. Gosh almighty, it just skipped way ahead. Hey, Gene, do you still throw a fluke? Is it still a confidence bait for you? It is still a confidence bait for you, but I'm always trying new things to get videos ready, trying to learn new techniques. And I think that's been more of a curse these last year or two. The fact that I'm get away from my confidence baits and I go to where I want to try new stuff and learn new things to make new videos, that kind of stuff. But that is what I do. But yeah, every time I grab a fluke, I can catch fish. The only fish I caught at the Lake Fork tournament was a 20-incher I caught on a fluke. Then I got pissed off at the world and couldn't catch a thing. So anyway, is there an app or website that will tell you the temperature of the lake? Only if the lake has a thermometer that's hooked up to that app, which is very, very few of them. What I used to do is I would bring an aquarium thermometer with me. They make these digital aquarium thermometers with these little leads, and I would use one of those when I didn't have a temperature gauge on my fish finder. So, and they're not that expensive. I think back then I was like $12 or $15. So, Jameson Gray, favorite reel. I love the Concept A from 13 is my favorite one that I use. I am sponsored by 13, so I've used all of their reels, but the Concept A is my favorite one of theirs. What do you think about the 13 Black Omen rods? I love them. They are absolutely great rods. Almost all of the kayak rods that I use are Omens. So, what would you recommend for a graph for my kayak looking for down and side imaging? Depends on what you can afford. What I always tell people to do is get the one with all the little bells and whistles that you want, and then buy the biggest screen that you can afford. Side imaging really does, to see the detail that you need to see, you need to have a big screen. 9, 10, 12-inch screen, and it gets expensive. I've tried it with those 8-inch screens, and you couldn't see the detail at all, hardly. I mean, you could tell if you were going over a rock pile and that kind of stuff, but be able to see a fish in the rock pile, that's a whole different story. So, Adrian, thanks for the $5. He says, would you ever consider doing a Dave Lefebvre hog trough setup in your kayak? If so, please video on how to do it. Thanks for everything. I haven't seen his. I'll have to look at it and ask him. But I don't know. I have no clue what he does. So I'll have to take a look at it. Looking to buy a bigger electric motor. I just lost the comment. For my 14-foot V-hull John boat. Any recommendations? Currently have a 30-pound thrust trolling motor. Man. I mean, the sky's the limit, really, because there's so many expensive ones out there with lithium batteries. But literally, what I would recommend, since it's only a 14-foot and you really don't want to have to put two extra batteries or one extra battery in the boat or whatever many you use, but you want to stay with one battery, go to a 50-pound thrust. 50-pound is the highest one you can get that's still a 12-volt system. When I used to build electric boats, those 14-foot John boats, we'd either put a whole bunch of batteries in it and spend a whole bunch of money putting batteries up front and running electric lines, or we just put a 50-pound thrust and go with it. So that's what I'd recommend. Tips for catching pre-spawn bass in pressured lakes, mid-50s water temperature. Go watch my lipless crankbait video. I love doing that in pressure rates in lakes. And what it is my favorite retrieve is I cast it out, let it sink about to the bottom, and then I start. It's a real fast reel and then a short little stop. So it's, if you watch my hands, I'm reeling and stop, reeling and stop, reeling and stop, and I'm kind of just giving it a little bit line each time I stop, but I don't stop it for very long, and they annihilate it. But go watch that video. It talks about a bunch of different ways to be able to do it. Have you ever heard or fished out of a Vexus boat? I have heard of a Vexus, never fished out of one. Fishing my first tournament in Florida at the end of the month. What a good goal to not get discouraged. The best thing I would tell you is have a game plan, fish your confidence baits, and if things get tough, then just go fishing. You know, what I do is I write on my hand in a Sharpie, go fishing is what I do, because I'm really bad at getting spun out. And it just reminds me hey, dude, if things get tough, just go fishing. Go find your fish, go catch some. You'll catch a limit. And that's usually what I do. So what's my number one soft plastic color? Green pumpkin, or a version of green pumpkin, like with flake or whatever else, but green pumpkin. How do I fish the lake with very little contour lines? I still try to find the deepest water in the lake, either with a fish finder or with a worm, a Carolina rig or something, counting it down, looking for the deep water. And then I just fish that area around the deep water. And I typically can find fish. Oh, fishing today says, I thank you for helping me get my PB Wednesday in Wisconsin. 5.5 pounds in Wisconsin. Wow, dude, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome. I'm trying to find a good fish finder with a SI under $500. Any recommendations? I have no clue, man. I have not even taken the time to look at what's available out there. Definitely. Sorry about that. When to throw an A-rig. The best time of the year to throw an A-rig is in the wintertime when it's really, really cold. And if you don't have ice on the water, they annihilate it. But I don't like to throw the A-rig because it just puts too many holes in the fish. So I kind of stay away from it. So does my wife ever go fishing with me? Yes, she does. Sometimes. I'm kind of edging her into getting to kayak fishing. She went out on a kayak a couple of months ago and loved it. Loved fishing out of it. Didn't get bit, but she just enjoyed being out on the water. And I just let her do her thing. Having her in the boat and trying to help her catch fish and stuff like that is a little stressful for me because she listens sometimes. And so we've been married 20 years. But yeah, dude, the best thing is for me is just to let her go out in the kayak and let her do her thing. So, all right. How do you get your flukes to not curl the tail? Brian, I'm trying to understand what that means. I'm guessing when you pull them out of the package, the tail's curled. I boil some water. I dip it in the water for about 12 seconds or so, pull it out, lay it down on a paper towel, and lay it straight and let it cool off, and it straightens out that tail. If it's spinning while you're reeling it in or while you're working it, a lot of times it has to do with that. Now, another thing is it may be that you're not putting your hook straight down the center line of that fluke. That's a key thing. If you turn your hook and look at it on the fluke and it's off to one side, you're going to get spin. It has to be perfectly hooked straight down the center line. So, are there certain techniques you prefer when fishing out of a kayak? No, I fish everything. It's just like being in a boat. It just is smaller and it floats. So yeah, I'm not picky. I'll try anything and everything out of a kayak. I even throw giant swim baits out of one. Can I put a fish finder on a sitting kayak? Yes, you can. Yak Attack makes a little thing that mounts to a Yak Attack mount that you can. It mounts right on there, and it's a little arm that goes over into the water and holds your transducer. So, let's see. I love this one. Backwater Kayaker says, why are tubes not more popular in the South? They look great Texas rigged, but seldom recommended by folks. Shh, don't tell anybody. That's one of the crazy things. Bass annihilate tubes and nobody fishes them down here. So you can go out in a pressured lake or go out and into an area that, that's got them and they've never seen tubes. And I learned the hard way last year. I was fishing the KBF Challenge kayak tournament in June, and I was in the lead until 2 days left in the month. And I was catching giants on bull shad swim baits. I'm talking, I think my smallest fish was 6 pounds. So in kayak world, it was like 22 inches was my smallest fish. And I mean, my buddy Clint, who fishes the same lake, went out the last 2 days of the month and started cracking a tube and beat me by 1.5 inches, or I think it was 1.5 inches. I was not happy, but I was happy for him. But goodness gracious, yeah, tubes work great in the South. We just don't fish them. We see them as a Yankee bait, I guess, or a northern bait. I don't know, but I got a bunch of them, and I do fish them. Do you fish flukes in the spring? Yes, I do. A lot. They're really good at finding bedding bass. You get on the bank and you start jerking around, and it'll cause a male to come off the bed, and he'll either strike at it, follow it back in the boat, or swing at it, or eat it. And then there's a bed there, and you can sit there and fish for the big female. Wolf Dever and Harrison Bay. Yeah, I think the state parks are closed on Chickamauga, as for sure. Talking about state parks being closed in Tennessee. So the game wardens out here at Rocky Mountain have been really good. They have been watching to make sure that there aren't too many people all in the same boat, and they're really doing a good job at checking licenses. And they caught somebody trespassing on the trophy lake end of last month, and so they've been out there. But man, they really have they've kept their distance and not really bothered you if you're not doing anything wrong, which is pretty nice. So. Do I have any of the original wiggle warts? If so, I've never bought a wigglewort. I know a lot of people fish them, but I like to walk a bait. A wigglewort kind of walks for you, but I like to put the action in myself. And I just never had a desire to fish one. I'm not saying they're bad. I know they catch the crap out of fish. Do you prefer live videos and answering questions or edited videos? Both. I really do. I love doing lives because it's one-on-one with you guys. I'm able to answer questions. We can communicate back and forth. But when I really want to get something, dive into the nitty gritty of something, I'm literally gonna go and do a video that I edit, and it's a lot of fun. I've been doing it for 11 years. Why not? But it's a lot of fun. I was actually one of the first ones to do a live video like this on fishing wise, and I've been doing them since we were able to on YouTube. So, what do I mean by tubes? See if I can explain it. And I don't have any with me. They're all out in the barn, but it's about a 4 or 5 inch bait, and it's hollow all the way through. And then it's got a bunch. It looks like it looks like a tube, a soft plastic tube, but it's got a bunch of little. The tail's been cut a lot, and so it frays out. And it's the only way I know how to explain it. Best thing to do is go look it up. Look up tube fishing, and you'll know exactly what a tube is. All right, guys, I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody's question. I really appreciate you joining me. It is now 1 hour and almost 2 minutes into this, and I'm going to go spend some time with my family and get this dryness out of my throat because of all the pollen that I was in today. I hope everybody stays safe. Remember, keep your hands out of your face when you're out in public. Wash your hands. Use hand sanitizer. Just be careful for the next several weeks. Take care of yourself. If you're not fishing, watch my videos. And hopefully if I can get my garden in tomorrow, I won't have to worry about it for a while, and I can really spend some time fishing and filming next week. So like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fish. Oh, click the link down just in the description and enter in it for a chance to fish with me next month. But like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing, introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More important to get out on the water, go out and catch some fish and have a great day. We'll see you.